Welcome to this video hands-on training session, Get Started with Visualforce for Admins. My name is Leah McGowan Hare, and I'm going to be your instructor through this video hands-on training session. Many of you have seen the Safe Harbor statement, basically stating, make sure all of your purchasing decisions are based off of current functionality and not any forward-facing features I may speak of in this video training session. What we'll be talking about in this session? Well, here's our agenda. We're going to talk about what is Visualforce, what can be included on a Visualforce page. We'll also do an exercise around that. We'll also talk about what can Visualforce be used for. I'll do a demo to create a PDF using Visualforce, and then we'll do key takeaways. Let's get started. So first, let's talk about what is Visualforce. Visualforce is a framework for building custom user interfaces in Salesforce. What it allows you to do is have full control over that user interface as well as the behavior. You can create Visualforce pages using a marked up language, very similar to that of HTML. You can include standard web technologies such as JavaScript, Flash, and cascading style sheets. What can Visualforce be used for? You can use Visualforce to do a lot of different things inside of Salesforce. One of them, maybe you don't like the default widget in which a field is being depicted on a page layout. You can change that number field to a radio button to make it easier for users to use. You can, one of my favorite things, you can embed a Visualforce page inside of a page layout. You can also display external websites in your Visualforce page, and you can display Salesforce data on a website using Force.com sites. So Visualforce gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of your user interface and the things that you can do. What does Visualforce look like? Visualforce pages are created using a tag-based markup language. It looks very similar, like I said earlier, to HTML. You have your start tag. So if you look in this slide, we have here our start tag, apex::page. Apex is our namespace, nothing more. It is our namespace. Page is our name of our component. And just like with HTML tags, we have attributes for all of our components. So in the blue highlighted section, you can see a tag attribute. Here in this example, it's called standard controller, and we set that attribute value to, quote, accounts. This is what we're also identifying as the controller for our Visualforce page. And sometimes you often heard components referred to as tags or Visualforce tags or Visualforce component or just a component. They can be called a number of different things, but they're referring to the same item. Now you can have a start tag as indicated on this page where it says apex::page, and for every start tag you need to have an end tag. So as you notice here depicted on this page, we have an end tag with the slash at the beginning. We also have something called a self-contained tag. Here where you see apex::detail slash, that's a self-contained tag. It is the start and end tag all in one. And you can tell by the placement of the /. So what can be included on a Visualforce page? If you've worked with HTML, you've probably worked with things such as Flash and images and text. All of those items can also be included on a Visualforce page. Here you can include HTML, you can include JavaScript, as well as including Ajax, cascading style sheets, images, Flash, text, file-based content, as well as Salesforce objects and fields. We can include everything you can do in HTML with a little bit more, and we're going to see some of that. How to reference objects and data. So in our Visualforce pages, you have the ability to reference objects as well as data. And the way in which we do this in a Visualforce page is this special binding. If you look at the example here where it says display a field and it says apex colon input field, well, that apex colon input field is our component. And then following the input field is the word value. That's our attribute. And here I'm assigning a value to that attribute by using quote, curly bracket, bang. Well, bang is short for exclamation mark because it's a lot easier to say bang than exclamation mark. So curly bracket, bang, position underscore underscore C dot status underscore underscore C. What I'm doing here is I'm referencing the field status that lives on the position object. So here I'm binding with that component input field, the actual field on the position object called status. And what ends up happening is, if you look right beneath that, you can see the status field showing up on the Visualforce page shown here, where it says open, and it's shown in a drop down. So it's very powerful. This input field not only binds with the data that's associated to that status field, it also binds with the metadata. It knows that this field is a pick list, so it shows it as a drop down. It also shows the label status. So it does a whole lot of work for you. I promise you, if this were HTML, it would take far more than one line to show that field. Also, you can call an action. So if you notice here, it says apex colon command button, and that is my component. And then I have the word action, that is my attribute. And then I assign it a value using quote, curly bracket, bang again, that notation that we saw earlier, quote, curly bracket, bang, save. Now what's happening there is it's saying I want a button to show up on my Visualforce page, and the button is going to have a title called save, hence the attribute following the action called value, where I say equals save. That's showing the label on top of that button. But there's got to be some kind of action. What happens when I click that save button? Well, here, what's going to happen is it's going to execute the save method that actually takes the data and persists it to the database. All of that from that one line. Very powerful. And we're going to do some of this. You can also execute a formula in Visualforce page. So if you look at the example here where I have bracket P, today's date is, curly bracket, bang, today. Today is a formula that will return the current date timestamp. So you can reference these formulas directly in your Visualforce page. So how do you create these wonderful Visualforce pages? There are great ways to doing it. We have many different ways of doing it. You can create it in a developer console. You can do it in the inline editor. You can also do it in the Force.com IDE. We'll be working with the inline editor, one of my personal favorites. So how to use your Visualforce page. So once you create these Visualforce pages, they're sort of like islands out there by themselves. You need to be able to hook them into your overall application. And there's many ways you can do that. One of them is you can override standard page layouts. And instead of the user being navigated to your page layout, you can have it automatically navigated to your Visualforce page. You can also create buttons, tabs, links, and actions that will trigger your Visualforce page. So there's many different ways of hooking that Visualforce page into your overall application. So we're going to go to our first activity, our first exercise, where we're going to create a Visualforce page. So in this exercise, we're going to create a simple Visualforce page to show you the variety of the basic components. All right, so let's go ahead and create our first Visualforce page. Now, in order to do this, we're going to first need to turn on development mode. And so you know, I am working in a customized org created specifically for this video hands-on training session. So what you want to do is go ahead and click on the admin user, and in your case, it may actually say your name. Click on that, and then select My Settings. And now we're brought into the My Settings. I would like you to navigate over to the left, and you'll see where it says Personal. Click on Personal, and then come down to Advanced User Details. Now, ultimately, this is bringing us to our user record. And what I'd like you to do once here is go ahead and click on Edit. And if you haven't already, change your first name to be your first name and your last name to be your last name. Your settings may already have your first name and last name, which is perfectly fine. Now, what I'm going to do is scroll down, and on your right-hand side, you're going to see a checkbox area called Development Mode. Go ahead and tick that box called Development Mode. And what this allows us to do is it will enable the inline editor that we're going to use to create our Visualforce page. Once you've done that, go ahead and click Save. Now that we have that turned on, we can now proceed with creating our Visualforce page. So I'm now on step number 2, where we're going to create a simple new page. So what I'd like you to do is click on your Home tab, and now take your mouse and come up to your URL and come up to where it says your first home, highlight all after that /, delete it, and then I'd like you to type in this: Apex, all lowercase, / hello world, and then hit enter. Now you know it is developer law that whenever you create your first item in a new language, it always has to say hello world. So we are following the rules of development. Now here, if you got an error, you did it right. You won't hear me say that often, but if you got an error that looks like mine, you did it correctly. Because basically what happened is it went to open up a Visualforce page called Hello World, and it didn't exist. So it says, page Hello World does not exist. Would you like to create it? So by clicking on this link that says Create Page Hello World, we're actually creating a Visualforce page. So voila, you've created your first Visualforce page. Give yourselves a round of applause. So now let's make this a little bit more interesting. What I'd like you to do is in the lower left-hand corner, go ahead and click on Hello World. And basically, we're lifting up the hood to our Visualforce page, and we're looking at the details. So here, I'm going to blow up the text a little bit. This, my friends, is the inline editor. This is where we're going to be working. So inside of this inline editor, over here on the left, we have our save button, which was once upon a time a disk. Many of you guys may not know that, but that's how we saved data back in the day. Then we have our search. Then we have here, go to line. And then you have your undo. And then you have your redo. And then you have your ability to make the font bigger as well as smaller. And then over here on the right, we have component reference, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. And then you can find where has your Visualforce page been used before by clicking on where is this used. And then up here, these icons, be very mindful of this one. If you click on this one that says hammer, that has a hammer and a wrench, it basically will disable your development mode, where we went to the user record to turn that on. And then this one will just collapse the inline editor. Now, inside of here, we generated all of this text, all of our Visualforce page inside of here by clicking on Create a Visualforce page, and it created it for us. So what we have here on line number 1 is our opening tag, apex:page. All Visualforce pages begin with apex:page. Then, between lines 2 and 5 is the content to our Visualforce page. And then on line number 6 is our closing tag. Remember, for every opening tag, you have a closing tag, unless it is a self-contained tag. Now, line number 2 are just comments. They're the same way that you would comment code if this were HTML. Line number 3 is just HTML, meaning H1 is header, and it's saying congratulations. Line number 4 is just straight up text. And as you can see, it appears in our Visualforce page just as it is typed at line number 4. And then line number 5, once again, are comments. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight everything from line 2 down to 5, highlight that, and delete it. Okay? And now I'm on step number 2O, and we're going to enter in the following text. Open bracket B, close bracket, which is HTML for bold. And then we're going to say, hello world. And then bang, open bracket / B, bracket. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the save. And then voila, it says hello world. Okay, a little interesting, but we can make it a little bit more interesting. So what we're going to do is, now I'm on step number 3, step 3A, we're going to use something called a global variable. Instead of hello world, we're going to say hello curly bracket, oops, get rid of that. Hello curly bracket, bang, $ user dot first name, curly bracket, and then bang. So let's look at this line before I hit save. So I have hello, then I have curly bracket, bang. Once again, what's that bang mean? We're binding. And then $ user, which is referencing a global variable, and then first name. So this is going to get the current user's first name. And then I have another bang. Well, what does this bang mean? This bang means excitement, because we're going to be really excited when we hit save. So let's go ahead and click save. Woohoo, there it is. Hello, Leah, your name in big lights, right? All on the screen. So really, this is a little thing that can go a long way with your users. You can make it feel like the page is customized for your current users by just using this one piece of code, right? Every time they log in, it will say, hello, whoever the current user is. All right, so we're going to continue to add on to this. So I'm now moving on to step number 4. And here, we're going to take our cursor and go apex : page. And then what I'd like you to do is do space. Now, all of a sudden, these things popped up. What is all this information that popped up? These are all of the attributes that are available to our tag. We want to go ahead and use a controller, but we're going to use a standard controller. So as I type in standard, it auto-populates for me, and there I get the option of selecting standard controller. And in here, I'm going to say standard controller equals position _ C. So let's first understand what is a controller. At a super high level, a controller controls the data and actions associated to your Visualforce page. So something is going to happen, but it's going to happen very quickly when I click save. So don't blink. Did you see what happened? I did. Well, here you might have noticed, all of a sudden, the Positions tab was brought into focus. Because what I basically did is I associated this Visualforce page to the position object, which also inherited everything associated to that object, which includes the tab. So now I have access to all of the position fields, as well as all of the actions associated to that position object. So I'm going to continue on, and that's step number 4 that we just completed. We're going to go on to step number 4B, okay? So underneath, after where it says hello, curly bracket, bang, $ user dot first name, curly bracket, and then bang again, we're going to add, after the first B for break, we're going to add 2 BRs. So bracket, BR, / bracket, and then another one. And this, my friends, is straight up HTML, which will put a break, a line break. And then I'm going to do a save. And we really don't see much of a difference just yet. Well, next we're going to add the tag apex : detail as indicated on step number 4C. So let's go ahead and do that. So I type in bracket apex : detail. And then I click Save. Well, once again, not a whole lot is happening. Well, this apex colon detail tag is very powerful. What it actually does is, and it goes and gets the associated page layout for the position object and renders it into this Visualforce page. Now, the reason it's not showing up here is because if you recall earlier, I stated when you create a Visualforce page, it's like an island out there by itself. It's not hooked into your application. So when you are hooked into the application, each page is fed the ID of the record. Well, this page doesn't have any ID of a record. So what we're going to do a quick workaround where we're going to feed this Visualforce page an ID. So first we need to go get an ID of a position record. So what I'd like you to do, and I'm moving on to step number 2, I would like you to right-click on the Position tab and select Open Link in New Tab. And then I'd like you to leave your Visualforce page and go to this other tab. And in here, under View, click on Go. And now you're getting a list of all of the position records. What I'd like you to do is grab the first position record. And in the URL, you're going to see the 15-digit case-sensitive ID at the top. I'd like you to highlight that, right-click, copy it, return to your Visualforce page, and now be very mindful of what I'm doing here, and I want you to copy exactly what I'm about to do. Come into the URL, put your cursor at the end of Hello World, type question mark ID in lowercase equals, and then paste that ID that we just selected, and now hit enter. So what we just did, we didn't change our, if you notice, our Visualforce code is the exact same. But now what we're doing is we're actually feeding it data. It has data to work on. So we can actually see, oh, wow, look at this. I have a whole Visualforce page. Now I know it looks like a page layout, but it's actually a Visualforce page. And all of that generated from these 4 lines of code. Very powerful. So now, if you notice, I'm going to just move the hood down a little bit. Let's look at what we have here. We have our Visualforce page. We have all of the fields. We have our different sections, technical section, description, position approvers, and then we have all of our related lists. Now, when you use this detail tag, you don't have a lot of control over where the fields are placed because you're taking the default page layout and just utilizing that to create your Visualforce page. However, we do have the ability to say whether we want the related lists to show up or not. So what we're going to do is take your, I'm going to pull up my hood a little bit here. Take your cursor, go to the end of the apex colon detail tag, and do space. And then what I'd like you to do is select the attribute called related lists. And then select false. Now what that line of code is going to do is turn off any related list that are showing up here. Once you've done that, go ahead and click Save. Now, if I scroll down, look at that. My related lists are all gone. Well, that works for now, but what if I decide, you know what? I want a couple of related lists to show up. I want to have the job applications related list as well as the interviewers related list to show up. Well, that's no problem. So what I'm going to do is lift up the hood, and I'm now on step number 5B. I'm going to add these 2 lines of code. Apex colon related list, and then I'm going to use the attribute list equals job applications __r. Now, if you notice, I use the plural version and I use __r. This is referring to my children records, because remember, children records are always shown as related lists. And I'm going to do the same thing for interviewers. And now I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And if you notice, I now have 2 related lists showing up. So I can cherry pick which related list I want to show up on my Visualforce page. So now we've created our Visualforce page to only have 2 related lists show up. Now this is great, but what I'd like to do is show you even some more of the powerful features of Visualforce. Since we don't have time to code it all, what we've done is we've actually given you the code. So I'm going to have you follow along with me in the exercise guide and go to step number 6 in your exercise guide. We're going to go ahead and get some exercise files. So scroll up to the top of your page, and if you notice under useful links, there's a link that says exercise file. Please click on that. Now, what I'd like you to do is copy this code from the exercise file. Highlight that code, copy it all. And then I'd like you to come over to the code that we placed in here, highlight the code in your Visualforce page, delete it, and then paste the code in from the exercise file. Now, we're going to click Save momentarily, but I want you to understand what this code is doing. I just don't want you to paste it and we say, voila. I'm going to go through this line by line and explain to you what this code is doing. So here, we have apex::page, where we're setting our controller equal to position. We did that earlier. We have hello world that's going to show up our name. Then we have apex::form tag, which is very similar to the HTML form tag, which is going to allow a section of our page to be editable, where we're going to be getting input from our users. Then I put page block section, which is basically going to carve out a section of our Visualforce page where we're going to have another section area that's going to be editable. So inside of that page block, we go ahead and put a page block section where I give it a title called Update Position. And now look at this. I want this section to have 3 columns. For all of my people out there that are familiar with working with page layouts, you're limited to only 2 columns. Here, we've already gone past that limitation, and we're having 3 columns. And in the first column, I'm going to have the name field. In the second column, I'm going to have the status field. And in the third column, I'm actually going to have a button that's going to say update, but will do the save action. And then I close out my page block section, I close out my page block, and then I close out my form. And then everything else, lines 12 through 15, is so 10 minutes ago, right? We did that. We created the detail where we turned off the related list to false. Then we added our own related lists. So let's save and see what we end up getting. So go ahead and click on the save. And now I'm going to pull the hood down a little bit. And now, what do we have here? At the top of our view page, we have a little section that allows us to edit 2 fields, which is driven by lines 3 through lines 10. So it's pretty, but the question is, does it work? So that's the question we need to find out. So we're going to come in here and we're going to edit the title. Let's call it account exec 2. And I'm going to change the status from opened to closed. And then I want to see if this button actually works. So let's go ahead and click on update. Well, wow, look at that. My title changed to account exec 2 and the status changed to closed. But wait a minute. My Visualforce page is gone. I'm back on the regular page layout. Why was that? Well, let's think about it. Remember, when we create a Visualforce page, it's like an island by itself. It still needs to be hooked into the application. We have not done that. So in the next part, step number 7, we're actually going to take our Visualforce page and hook it into the application so that when we do click on that button, Update, it doesn't take us away from our Visualforce page. So let's go ahead and do that on step number 7. We're going to go ahead and click on the Setup menu, scroll down, and on the left-hand side, underneath the Build menu, we're going to go ahead and unbutton the Create, and then we're going to click on Objects. And now we're going to navigate to our Position object, so go ahead and click on the Position object. And what we want to do is we want to override the natural navigation that goes to our view. So if you scroll down to the area that says Buttons, Links, and Actions, and if you come down to the last one that says View, when a user is viewing a record, we don't want to use the standard Salesforce page layout. We want to use our Visualforce page. So go ahead and click on Edit. And in here, we're going to change it to Override with Visualforce page. And you're going to click on the drop down and select Hello World. Now, let me just point out, you could have several other Visualforce pages that you've created. However, the only ones that will show up as an option for the override here are Visualforce pages that use the Position object as the standard controller. They have to share the same standard controller. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select Hello World and then click Save. So now let's go see what that does. So now let's go ahead and click on the Positions tab. And I'm just going to go ahead and select the record that we edited earlier here. And it brings me directly into my Visualforce page. Now if you notice, the hood was up when I came in. And you might be thinking, well, I don't want my users to see that. Users will not be able to see the details behind the Visualforce page if they do not have development mode turned on. And if you recall, that was the first thing that we did before we even created a Visualforce page. So now here it is. Now let's test it again. So now I'm going to change this from Account Executive 2 to Account Executive 3, and I'm going to change the status to New. And then I'm going to click on my button called Update. All right, so now we can see that it clearly worked. We updated the title, we updated the status, and we stayed on our Visualforce page. So we've just completed our first exercise. Here you created your first Visualforce page. We included that Visualforce page into our application by overriding the natural behavior to go to a page layout by overriding it to go to our Visualforce page, and we tested our Visualforce page. Now we're going to return to our slides. Now that you just created your first Visualforce page, how'd that feel? I'm sure it felt great. Well, I want to demonstrate to you some other really powerful features of Visualforce, so I'm going to do a demo for you. In this demo, I'm going to show you how you can generate a PDF by clicking a button, and the PDF is actually a Visualforce page. So let's go see how that works. Okay, so I'm here inside of my org, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Offers tab, and I'm going to go pull up an offer record. So I'm going to click on the Go button. When I click on a Go button, I get a list of job offers, and I'm just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to grab the first record. And in here, I'm looking at a job offer record. We have the offer number, the offer date, the offer expiration date, who the offer is to, for which position. And if you notice, there's a button up here called Generate an Offer Letter. So when I click on this button, it actually launches a Visualforce page. So I'm going to move this Visualforce page into focus here. And I'm just going to open this up a little bigger so we can look at the code behind it. Now, if you notice, this is just plain HTML. It's a plain Visualforce page. If I want to make this a PDF with all the bells and whistles that go with a PDF, I come up to the first line, number 1, apex colon page. I put my mouse inside of the brackets and do space. And there is an attribute called render as. And if I put in PDF, now watch what happens when I click on save. It now takes it from HTML to an actual PDF file. So now when they click on the button, they'll actually get a PDF where they can print, they can save. So let's just test to see if that works. So I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the button again, generate offer letter. And here, it generates a PDF. Very powerful. Now you've seen some of the powerful things you can do with Visualforce, and I hope this inspires you to go out there and play around and create great things with Visualforce. Let's talk about some of the key takeaways from this video hands-on training session. 1, Visualforce pages can customize the user interface. You've seen and actually experienced how to create these custom user interfaces. You can customize it highly, or you can customize it just a little bit, but you have that power using Visualforce. Visualforce pages are rendered in HTML. So when the Visualforce page renders down to the browser, it actually is HTML that's being generated to the browser, not the actual Visualforce code. Visualforce pages support expression syntax to communicate with Salesforce. We saw the binding. You can pull in that curly bracket bang, and you can pull in data from your actual Salesforce objects, allowing you to highly utilize items that you've already created on the platform. What's next? Ready for more hands-on training? Well, keep your eyes out for more video hands-on training sessions coming soon. You want to go deeper with instructor-led training? Check out our catalog where we offer a variety of instructor-led training classes. You want to get certified? Go to salesforce.com/certification and check out our variety of certifications. Thank you for joining this video hands-on training session, Get Started with Visualforce for Admins.